Hello, everybody out there in YouTube. We are the middle-aged guys, or at least part of the middle-aged guys, because some of us have real lives. Actually, all of us have real lives, and we're not able to participate on this particular video. But in that case, just to get the introductions out of the way, I'm the Reverend.
And I'm Graymouse 1.
Hey, yeah, for the middle-aged guys, we're going to go ahead and we're going to continue on what we usually do every week. And this particular news that we're going to jump on isn't exactly new, but it's something that kind of falls within my wheelhouse and our wheelhouse altogether. Sony went out of their way, and they announced on the 3rd, earlier this month, the PlayStation Firmware Update 4.50. Along on that update, there was a lot of really, really cool features and functions that were coming, not just to the PS4 Pro, the base model and the Slim, but also to the not just the Sony PlayStation 4, the Slim and the base model, but also the Pro model. Okay, generally speaking, there was a lot of features and functionality that was introduced with the brand new firmware update, which was codenamed Sasuke, and it was announced out on the 3rd. The first one that was announced out was external hard drive support, which was really cool. Another thing that was announced was stuff like custom wallpapers, a quick menu refresh, simplified notification list, and other stuff for like PlayStation VR and activity feeds, as far as things that show up on the UI when you're just looking at the cross-media bar format of the Sony PlayStation. The one thing that came along with the firmware update 4.0 that had a lot of people who were really interested, especially the PS4 Pro owners, was a brand new thing that they called boost mode. Boost mode, or as the fanboys have been calling it, beast mode. Okay, and basically what this is that if you happen to have a PlayStation 4 game that was released out before the PlayStation Pro was announced and in development, and if it's a game that doesn't have a Pro mode built into it, is that boost mode allows older PlayStation 4 games to go ahead and take advantage of the brand new and upgraded hardware that the PS4 Pro has in box. Because the way that the PS4 Pro handles, well, previous to the 4.5 update, the way that the PS4 Pro handles older titles is that it runs at a clocked down or downscaled or capped processor speed for both the CPU and the GPU. As such, basically, it's kind of running at the same speed as a standard PS4. They did that for various number of reasons, mostly for compatibility and everything else. But it looks like after the number of months that it's been out on the market and everything, they went ahead and they've noticed, hey, look, there's actually no downside for the PS4 Pro to be running at a higher its natural native clock speed. So let's go ahead and unlock that. Let it run the higher clock speed. The folks who have older titles, they're going to see a little bit of a boost in performance, or as they said in their particular let's see here, in a press conference, they said, when activated, boost mode lets PS4 Pro run at a higher GPU and CPU clock speed in order to improve gameplay on some games that were released before the launch of the PS4 Pro. Games that have variable frame rate may benefit from a higher frame rate, and load times may be shorter in some games too. So basically, if you're somebody who's got a PS4 Pro and you don't have the PS4 VR, or you don't happen to have a game that's has a Pro mode on it, and you've got older titles, they've given you a reason to actually pick up the PS4 Pro, which is quite interesting. All right, and that's what we're going to talk about in this first segment here. Graymouse, before I monopolize any more time, what are your thoughts on this, sir?
They should have had this. I don't understand why they would. I mean, I do. I mean, I understand from a technical standpoint, being that heat generated by running the GPU, CPU at normal speed. They're going to clock it down, to try to contain the heat, and also for compatibility and easy developing for. I understand that. But I'm kind of wondering, do you think that Sony is doing this because of what they know that Microsoft is coming out at the end of the year? Because, I mean, because technically, you know, I mean, that system that Microsoft is going to be releasing at the end of the year is specifically for 4K gaming, and that's what it is. It's going to be a beast of a system, the powerful, whatever. But there's no games to play on it, so what's the point in having it anyway? I digress. But this might be Sony's little trying to say, hey, we're still relevant, you know. But because in all honesty, you know, we've been the middle-aged guys have been keeping our ear to the ground with the release of the Pro. We've done several shows about the Pro and the pros and cons. Sorry, I had to do the pun. But it really didn't do much over the traditional Slim and the PS4, the launch console. So now they're pushing out this software update to where they're actually going to unlock the potential of the CPU and GPUs. And in all honesty, I think the PlayStation 4 Pro should have already been like that from the beginning. That should have been something that they were headed, instead of, oh, we'll just put this out, you know, PlayStation 4 Pro, and then we'll boost it up later. It should have been right out of the box. Here's PlayStation 4. We're actually going to bring up the clock, the GPU, CPU, for performance better, because they already knew, some developers, like you said, some developers already had put the code in for the Pro mode already on their discs. Now the older because PlayStation, we're on year 4 now, right?
Yeah. Yep.
So you have still the launch titles and, you know, a couple other titles, you know, throughout the years that didn't have that the PlayStation Pro was not, you know, thought of or out or at the time of the development. So that's good. I mean, to me, I think it's really good that they're I'm getting tongue-tied here, that they're doing this for it. But in actuality, you know, like you mentioned earlier, Reverend, is it really worth that extra $100 to have a slight increase in performance, or while you playing old games, launch title games, when the frame rate should already be? I mean, I'm trying to play devil's advocate on both sides of the house. I mean, we all, as gamers, would love to have our games work at 60 frames per second, you know, at 1080p and above. We all want to see that, but you got to pull it back some, pull that throttle, you know. That's not, sometimes that's just not reality. Yeah, you can get the 1080, but you can't have the 60 frames per second consistent. Yeah, you'll reach it, you'll peak it, and then other times you'll dip down to the 50s or whatever, right? But I mean, I understand where they're coming from, but like I said at the beginning of this little spill here, I'm rambling on now, is that I think that when the PlayStation Pro was launched, it should have already had it should have already had all the GPUs, CPUs clocked, normal clocked, instead of just running a software update that will do it for them. I mean, I don't know the ins and the outs on how to do that, how complicated that might be. But
well, generally speaking, I do have to agree. The one thing about this, when I sat down and I saw that this was actually coming out and that they were doing this, I do agree that the first thing that came to my mind was, shouldn't they have done this from the beginning? And there, as somebody who's been on the development side, the only thing I could think of is that they didn't want to sit there and have to mess with introducing variable specifications to software that's running. Now, if the software is done right, you know, and since everything's made for fixed spec, if you increase the GPU power, increase the CPU power, that can cause unknown issues. And I think that was probably one of the things that they were afraid of. The thing that I have with it, though, is that if you do that, let's say if you do that with any sort of PC game, you upgrade your CPU or you upgrade your video card, then what happens is that obviously there's going to be a jump in performance. But the difference is that PC games are developed to, go ahead and encompass that spectrum of variable hardware. Now, the one thing that you brought up that I think we have to sit there and kind of bring to the fore that a lot of people have not mentioned, that I haven't seen anybody mention, is that the timing of the release on this firmware update is kind of suspect. Because if you think about it, it's a month out from the release of the Switch, and then later on in the year, like you had mentioned, Microsoft is coming out with the Scorpio. I think it helps keep Sony. I don't think Sony has to sit there and needs any help staying relevant. Okay, they have over 60 million consoles sold worldwide, in comparison to their nearest competitor, which has less than 40 consoles. Less than around 30,000 consoles right now. Excuse me, not 30,000, 30 million consoles sold. Like I said before in a previous video, it's not a console war. It's more like a console bullying right now. Okay? Yeah. So I don't think Sony is really worrying about their relevance as far as their place in the market or their market share. What they are concerned of is that I think they do know that if they have these new players out on the market, it's going to take away attention from their system, and they want to be able to say, for sure, we're still relevant and we still do things, the way that people think that we want them to do, or the way that people are expecting them to do.
Yeah, exactly. And I was going to mention, I was trying to talk over you, but I was going to mention the same point is I think that Sony's doing this just to maintain status quo is what it is. I mean, not like you just, Sony has 60 million consoles sold. Yeah. Microsoft, I'd say around 38 to 40. We don't know. Last numbers we got from them was 2014, early 2015 numbers.
Yeah, and it was pretty much 2 to 1. So
right, we have and it's been like that for a while. A couple months before, though, Microsoft did outsell Sony in some important months towards the holidays. But nonetheless, I feel that I'm not saying that Sony is any being afraid, but I think they're looking at it from a business standpoint. Like, we know this monster's coming out in this time frame. We need to encourage our users or future users that Microsoft has their 4K machine, but we could do the same thing at a cheaper rate because I think Phil Spencer already said it's going to be between 5 and 6, I think, which is what we predicted anyway for the Scorpio. Yeah. I mean, come on, it's a huge machine. It's almost a small PC is what it's amount to. So I think this is like Sony saying, yeah, that's coming out, but guys, we could do 4K gaming here too, or high fidelity gaming as well. But it's just, and like you mentioned, it is very interesting to me, and as a gamer, and as middle-aged guys, it's like, because I always have fun guessing what the other company's going to do. It's always speculate. It's always fun to do that, and it's just the timing is just like, wait a minute, because Sony's going to have to deal with Nintendo here in a minute, and then Microsoft at the end. There's no way that Sony's going to lose their market share right now. Not in this generation. That's not going to happen unless.
Yeah, I don't suspect that you out of the the truth of the matter is this, is that as much as I love Nintendo and everything else, the owners of the 60 million PS4 consoles that are out there, PS4 Pro, PS4 Slim, base PS4 or otherwise, right, that are out in the market, those guys aren't going to sit there and dump their PS4s for Switch. Okay, no. They're going to get a Switch on top of that. Mm-hmm. But the general thing about it is that the timing is very suspect because, my whole view on the PS4 Pro with this particular functionality with boost mode is that it should have been there from the very beginning. All right,
my point.
However, the thing that a lot of people have to sit there and take in consideration is that if you have a game that runs at a capped 30 frames per second and large majority of the AAA titles out there only run at 30 frames per second. This boost mode, guess what? It's not going to transform your game into running 60 frames because the game just doesn't run at that speed.
Yep.
Okay. All it's going to do is that it's going to allow you to go ahead and if there are more things on screen that you're not going to see those sort of frame rate dips, it's going to give you even frame rates and, like the press release said, maybe faster load times. And that's pretty much it. It's not going to turn whatever game you're currently playing into a brand new experience. It's going to even out the experience so that things are less obvious.
Yeah.
But yeah, people have to sit there and realize that it's not going to sit there. If you're playing Street Fighter V, guess what? That's already running at a locked 60 frames. You're not going to pump out any more out of that. Same thing with any fighting game or any sports game. You're not going to pump any more performance out of that. Now, things like The Last of Us. Well, Last of Us has a pro mode. Things like the Dark Souls games or any game that out there that's really, really busy and really really detailed that doesn't have a pro mode, already patched in. Yeah, your experiences will probably be noticeably more consistent, but it won't be transformative. And that's the one thing that a lot of people have to sit there and realize. The other thing with like the external hard drive and the other features, they're nice little features. They're nice little details that we keep hold of. Again, a lot of that stuff, a lot of people were thinking, or we're asking out loud, well, why wasn't this there in the first place?
One thing that's interesting too is that just to wrap this up real quick, one thing that I find interesting too is that there's significant enough change to pull the I'm talking about like the base Xbox One and the base PlayStation 4 to pull the performance up past the Xbox One's original performance, right? Because the PlayStation 4, let's be honest, PlayStation 4 and Xbox One pretty much are identical side by side.
Pretty negligible, yeah.
So negligible, extremely negligible, right? So, but the Pro mode or Beast mode will pull them up a little bit more. So people were like, okay, so I pay $100 for this new, for a better performance than the Xbox One, and it's still cheaper than the Scorpio up here at $500. So, and this is perfect. This is what I like about the industry. Gives you, we've said this many times on this channel. Options are great. Not all of us have $600 to spend on a freaking miniature PC. Some people don't have that type of money. So there's different tiers in what your entertainment, what you'll be able to get out of your entertainment, which is good. So, I mean, and the bottom line, they should have had that when PlayStation Pro was released at the beginning. But I mean, it is what it is. So those are my final thoughts on this particular topic.
Yeah, I mean, my whole thing is that I think it should have been there from the beginning. I know why they didn't do it, for compatibility reasons. And in a surprising move, a first-party publisher was actually considering, the type of load that it would. Oh yeah, they didn't want to go out of their way to completely fuck developers. Okay, that in a surprising move, I thank them for that. But it's one of those things where the architecture is very much similar to PC architecture, and PC architecture has been framed to go ahead and deal with the variable specs and specifications, a wide spectrum of hardware like that. So at least, they know that the increases and the changes aren't like huge, world-breaking things. This is something that should have been there from the beginning. Now, with them putting it out now, it still keeps them up in the forefront, in everybody's attention and everything else. Everybody has to go ahead and pay attention to what they're doing. And yeah, if you were asking me now, in comparison to 6 months ago, is going out of your way to pay the extra $100 for a PS4 Pro, is it worth it? I would say, yeah, it's worth it now, if you don't already have a PS4. All right, if you have a PS4, guess what? Unless you need an extra console around, I don't think it's worth it still. Okay? But if you're a brand new owner or somebody who's looking for a PS4 and you're wondering whether or not the extra $100 is worth it, Now, in this instance, yes, it is.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and I'll be completely honest with that.